Recording. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this live session. I'm Sonia. I'm from the Education. Now, Australia indeed remains as the land of opportunities. So, even with the recent events unfolding from pre-COVID public health emergency to the lockdown and recovery, now as we speak, Blue Education has been around for 20 years, facilitating the process of students and migrants coming over to Australia to start a new adventure. Now, we represent many schools in Western Australia and all around Australia. So, of course, Perth is our home base, and we will continue to present the opportunities here. Now, we are quite proud of the WA government in managing the COVID situation, and so we can assure parents that their children are safe here. Now, we often promote a study and route pathway for students to consider. The ones that are in demand in Australia is naturally the ones that we prioritize. Now, for those who are interested in a longer term career opportunity in Australia, an automotive mechanic is on the list for migration. Now, if I see the stats, there are over 6,000 available invites by the government, but less than 20 people have been invited. So here we are. Now, we are happy to present to you a study option through Apeiro Institute. Over to you, Kartik.
Hi everyone, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. And Sonia, thank you so much for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure to represent Apeiro Institute. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Kartik Guradia, and I'm the marketing manager at Apeiro Institute. I've been with Apeiro since the very first day, since 2017, when the company was founded. Well, we founded in 2016, but I started off in 2017. With our college, we are currently based in Perth as well as Melbourne, Victoria. Now, Perth campus is our head office, and we recently started our Melbourne campus in 2020 with a vision to provide our students with exceptional vocational training programs such as the automotive courses. When we first started Apeiro Institute, the goal was to provide students with quality education for business and ELICOS courses, and slowly bring in trade courses such as the automotive package itself. We are located in Perth City, in the heart of Perth CBD, really easy to get to from public transport in the city, as well as over in Melbourne, we're based in Springvale, which is known to be a hub for the automotive industry. And we've got quite modern facilities over here. With that being said, the focus again is on quality education that we reflect upon with our trainers and the courses we offer. Sorry, Sonia, can you hear me there?
Yes, all good. I can hear you.
Brilliant. Well, what I would like to do now is take our viewers through the courses that we at Apeiro have to offer, starting with some of our most popular courses, which are the automotive courses. Now, the reason we started these courses in the beginning was because we saw a gap in the market where students wanted to study such courses, and there's a huge demand for trade opportunities in Australia, particularly in Western Australia and Victoria. If I look at some of the statistics, which we'll go over later on, this will show you the amount of jobs available in the market, as well as why students should be opting for such an option. Now, the way the automotive package or the pathway works is students initially start off with a Certificate 3 in Light Vehicle Mechanical Technology, which is a 1-year program, 52 weeks. The study duration per week is 20 hours, and the courses are divided in, over 2 days, 2 full days. So students actually have 5 days off their time free time during the week for them to be able to either work and or study and do things around the city. The Cert 3 program, the goal here is to start with basic foundation for students to get a better understanding of the automotive industry and to get into the light vehicle mechanics, followed by a Certificate 4. So once a student completes a Cert 3, the prerequisite for them, which is a prerequisite for them to get into a Certificate 4. This course is a 26 weeks program, which is 6 months, including 2 weeks of study break, and the duration of study period remains the same. That's 20 hours a week, 2 days a week, followed by a Diploma of Automotive Technology, which goes on for a further 26 weeks, including 2 weeks holidays. Now, together, this package is a 2-year automotive study programs, which leads to some brilliant career outcomes. Students often are able to find work in the fields of a motor mechanic or are qualified enough to be a motor mechanic or an automotive technician, which I will discuss a bit later on. Coming down to the fees for these courses, now our fees in Perth at the moment are very, very competitive. A Certificate 3 program is valued at $12,000, followed by a Certificate 4 at $6,000, and a diploma at another $6,000. That is a tuition fee. Plus, we do have materials and enrollment fee, which is nominal. Now, students may often ask, what is the advantage? Well, first of all, with vocational training, this fees is a discounted fees. Our original pricing for a Certificate 3 was valued at $16,000, but we're currently offering it at $12,000. Same for Cert 4 and Diploma. The original pricing was valued at $8,000 each, but we're currently offering those at $6,000. If students tend to break the cost down, I did a recent sort of statistical study to see what the value for them would be. And turns out that for a 2-year package, students often end up paying less than $250 a week, which when you come to think of as compared to universities or higher education providers is really, really affordable. Jumping on to some of the career outcomes from the automotive courses, as Sonia mentioned earlier, that there's a huge demand. Here we go. We have some really great possible career options upon completion for our students, which include a diagnostic technician, automotive technician, service technician, and master technician as well. What these occupations allow is for students to complete their qualification and find work in the industry. Before I jump onto a salary comparison, we did a recent study, and by recent, I mean as updated as this morning, when I went onto various statistical data and figured out how many jobs are there across the country. The number here is going to blow your minds away. Across Australia, as a country, as of this very moment, when you look it up, there's about 1,200, minimum about 1,200 jobs available for motor mechanics. There's about 2,198, nearly 1,200 jobs available as automotive technicians, which forms a huge, huge number. Students often wonder, how do I get into that workforce, or what do I have to do? Well, in Australia, one of the keys for you to be able to find employment is that you need to have a foundation study, which is a Certificate 3. That's a bare minimum required for students today to be able to find work, followed, of course, by upskilling into a Certificate 4 and a diploma package. Out of these jobs, you'd be surprised to see that in Perth itself, which is in Western Australia where we're based, for motor mechanics, there's about 238 jobs available. As an automotive technician, there's about 340 jobs available. Now, please bear in mind, I'm only talking about Perth. When I did look up Western Australia as a state as a whole, which on the map of Australia is half the country, there's about 560 jobs available just as an automotive technician, which goes to show that the demand in the market is huge, meaning students are more than welcome in Western Australia. Well, not just that, across Victoria as well, there's about 380 jobs available as automotive technicians. Goes to show, again, that the market needs fresh graduates that are willing to learn, because I believe having studied in Australia, having had qualifications here, what employers often look for is someone that has the technical skill, but more than that, the ability to mold themselves according to what the situation requires. And I believe that's where we at Apeiro Institute step in to provide students with theoretical as well as practical knowledge and guidance, which shall be discussed further in this presentation, to empower students, to give them an opportunity to be able to work in their chosen field of study. Now, We also have some salary comparisons available for our students that are based overseas currently, particularly in Malaysia, Philippines, and Indonesia. Based on some of our study, the average salary of automotive technicians in Australia is about $65,000 per year. That's just a base average. And when you compare that figure to countries such as Malaysia, where the average salary tends to be around 9.5, or let's inflate it a bit, about 10,000 Australian dollars, which is, I believe, 28,800 in the Malaysian currency, ringgits.
Yep, that's about right.
Sounds about right, doesn't it, Sonia? In the Philippines, the current market trend is 98,264 pesos per year. If you equate that to an Australian figure, you're looking at about $3,000 a year. And again, if you compare it with the Indonesian rupiah, that's the figure. So if you compare these statistics, Australia does have a very, very good opportunity for students. As Sonia mentioned earlier, we're known to be a land of opportunities, wherein students, after they have the right qualification and the skill for them to be able to succeed in their futures, they also have competitive salary packages. And what I would like to add to this is, let's not forget that the statistics that we are talking about right now are as recent as today, meaning the whole world is still going through a pandemic, which is out of our control. Yet, with that being said, in a country like Australia, there are over 3,000 jobs available in this chosen field of study, which in my opinion is absolute fantastic when you compare it to any other part of the world. So I, for one, am proud to represent Australia, or Australian education in that sense. And as I mentioned earlier, having been a student before does give me a holistic approach to this. What are your thoughts about this, Sonia?
Oh, that's really good to hear. I can see the passion through your eyes, through your voice. It's very good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There are some questions. There are a few questions coming up. I was wondering if you'd like to just, sort of finish your presentation and then we'll open for questions.
Absolutely. No problems. I'll just quickly give our students or viewers a brief about some of our other courses and move on to the question segment. Apeiro Institute also offers business courses in both Perth and Melbourne campuses. Now, this is designed for students that wish to get a better knowledge and understanding about the business cultures around the world and help them with their business studies. The courses we currently offer are Diploma of Business, leading to an Advanced Diploma of Business, both one-year courses, followed by an Advanced Diploma of Leadership and Management, which runs for 78 weeks. That's close to a year and a half, including holidays. And the fees, as mentioned, are on the slides. $8,000 for Diploma of Business, $8,500 here for Advanced Dip, and the Advanced Diploma of Leadership and Management is $12,000. The career outcomes from this could be students being able to find work across a wide range of industries in the country, and it allows them to have a formal qualification that may potentially lead to studying at a higher education level. So this may form a pathway for students as well to get into universities and get a higher ed qualification. The next batch of courses that we have to offer are some of our foundation courses, which are known as ELICOS courses in Australia, that help students with their English. The most popular course that I'd like to highlight here is called the BD Preparation for Success. Now, this course runs for a duration of 4 to 14 weeks, including 2 weeks of holidays for a full 14 weeks program. What students do learn from this course is all the 4 sections of the BD tests, which are listening, reading, writing, and speaking, as well as vocab and grammar, to assist students improve their overall PD scores and their skill set, allowing them to choose an automotive or a business pathway. So for students that do want to study English and aren't sure about a different pathway, what they can do at Apeiro is complete the ELICOS program, and then moving forward, take it on to a business pathway or an automotive pathway. Similar Similarly, we do have the IELTS preparation for success and the details given right here. The biggest difference is the IELTS preparation for success is a 26 weeks program. However, what we can do is enroll students based on modules. So that could be 4, 8, 14, and so on and so forth. If you'd wish to know more about these, I would highly recommend you to give Blue Education a call, and the friendly team over there will be able to guide students through these packages and programs.
Thanks.
Last thing I'd like to add is, sorry, Sonia, I totally cut you out there, my bad. Before we move on to questions, at Apeiro Institute right now, we're offering certain scholarships, predominantly for our business courses. We're offering a $1,000 scholarship for both Diploma of Business and an Advanced Diploma of Business, and a $2,000 scholarship for the Leadership and Management program, both in Perth as well as Melbourne. Now, there are certain terms and conditions applied to this, for which, again, I would recommend you to speak to Blue Education's team, and they'll be able to guide you through it. Jumping on to questions, see what we have.
I've got quite a number of questions. I'm not sure if the participants would like to ask or would like me to present them. I'll just go with the first one and see how it goes. Now, I've got Joseph, who's interested to know if one has already completed a 2-year program locally, which I'm assuming is from his or her home country, are there exemptions given? So in a way, would Apeiro provide any advanced standing for the student?
Great question. Well, in that sense, what we do at Apeiro is something called as recognition of prior learning, where we can take it case by case based on what the student's existing qualification level is and or experiences. We can get it assessed and potentially may be able to give them some sort of exemption and or advanced standing when applicable. However, that being said, I can't give a straightforward answer to this, but we can consider these options because we would like to see what the qualifications are, where have they studied, and what institutions do they come from. Generally speaking, we prefer students to have an Australian qualification from day one onwards, because that will help them in their future in terms of employment. Hope that answers the question.
If there are no other...
Karthik.
Yep.
Karthik, can you hear me? Is Joseph?
Yes. Yes, Joseph.
My question is this actually. You see, these students, they've already. My son is like already working now in Malaysia, and he has already completed a 2-year. He's working for about maybe 2.5 to 3 years now, right? In the automotive line. So the thing is, of course, the course is in English, and being automotive, it was 70% practical and 30% theory. Yep. One of the reasons why I selected this course for him, because he's more of a theory guy, more of a practical guy than a theory guy. So is your course in Apeiro also considered similar? That means more practical than theory, or is it different?
Sure. Well, look, this is a great question. What I like to point out is what we provide at Apeiro is vocational training. Now, vocational training is very different to higher education, where at university, students learn just theory and very little practical. Whereas with us, similar to what your son's already studied, the average percentage is 60-40, where students spend a lot of time at the workshop, as well as they get theory bits and bobs in the duration of their course. Now, generally speaking, this course itself being a vet-based learning, the assessment are based on their practical knowledge, meaning what they've learned in the workshop, plus their theoretical knowledge, because this will genuinely allow a student to demonstrate this in their future at workplaces. So to answer your question, yes, very similar, practical-based learning, absolutely. And we have workshops set up in Western Australia, currently in Coburn Central, which is about 25 odd minutes from our campus here. And over in Melbourne for Apeiro Institute, we've actually got a workshop itself where the classes are held. So the campus is actually a massive workshop. What I will do, Joseph, is after this presentation, I think I'll send Sonia a link of the video for our campuses, and she can share that with you as well, so you get an understanding of what we provide at Apeiro Institute. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Okay.
There was another question, I think it was from Joseph. Are ELICOS courses online?
Great question. ELICOS courses are face-to-face in Perth, back face-to-face. So nothing online.
I guess the beauty about learning English is to be able to use it and use it in the environment where everyone else speaks English and you wouldn't have the opportunity to use other language.
Absolutely. I mean, there's an old saying, if you want to learn a language rather than studying it online or through textbooks, you live in that environment to help improve your skills. And I think that's what we're trying to portray here as well by providing face-to-face learning in class.
Well, I mean, I do agree with that, but because we are in an evolving world, and onset of COVID-19 and the onset of many using online tools to do learning, and we all know that the YouTube is a great teacher on its own for many seeking knowledge. So, and because of cost also, because all the countries you mentioned just now have a lower standard of living, lower cost of living compared to Australia. So if the people who are considering pursuing education, of course, certain must have parts of the program. I do agree; those face-to-face has to happen. But those that can be considered as an online distance learning kind of a method, where in terms of the overseas students, there can be some consideration of latitude of fee structure. That would definitely help, because the online sessions would also teach. During this last 4 months of us being on lockdown, my wife did a lot of teachings to students online, and even though her program is not meant to be online, but despite her doing the online, I mean, the children still learn. Right? So, I mean, that's my view. That's my view, right?
No, I absolutely agree with it. And I believe whilst we were going through the pandemic, when it started off in March, based on what was going on in Western Australia, we did have to go online. So our courses did run online for a while. However, with the low number of cases currently in Western Australia, touch wood, there's no community transmissions. And based on the government advice that we've received, based on the advice received by ASQA and other compliance bodies, we have decided to go back onto face-to-face learning. And that's the feedback we've received from students as well, that actually did enjoy the flexibility and the convenience of online study, but the preference was in class. However, with that being said, I do agree with you when it comes to distant learning, and that is an option that we will be happy to consider and take it case by case. But as of now in Perth, generally speaking, the classes are face-to-face.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in because we've got many students who are currently complaining about online learning. Not so because it's difficult, it's just that they miss being at school with their friends and their teachers, doing group assignments. And look, to be honest, the automotive program there's just so much theory that you can do. The rest of it, you've got
has to be practical. That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Even the assessments have to be practical. So
I'm not disputing that. Automotive, I do agree, because it's practical. It has to be face-to-face, and that I have no question. We're talking about the English preparation, IELTS, and things like that.
Well, there's more to it than just the preparation bit. So there are two parts to allowing a student, for a student to be eligible for any course here in Australia. One is, well, the general academic criteria. The other one would be the English level. So it is a very important part of a student's journey towards learning and finding work here in Australia. English really is very, very important. And so the English requirement, or the number of weeks that are dedicated towards learning English, is very much, how do I say that? It forms part of the entry criteria. Am I right, Kartik?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah. So it's not just as simple as, oh, I've got access to online learning. This is my English level. No. So we would often ask for a formal English test result through the IELTS or the Pearson test. If not, we would also administer an English placement test on behalf of the school before a student can be considered applying for the program. Okay. There's also a question by Suraj. Now, Suraj mentioned that there are 3 courses with different fees. Should we complete all of those programs, or must we choose 1 out of 3 programs? And about English tests. Okay, it's about English.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Go for it.
I'll start from the top. I'll start from an entry requirement point of view, which answers your English question, Suraj. Beautiful question. This will help clarify this doubt for a lot of students. Now, with our courses, there is a minimum entry requirement for the courses. So students need to prove their English for these courses, and they need to have a 5.5 band score in PTE or a different test. So once they prove this English and or they do the LCOS program, what they can do is jump onto the automotive package. The very first course for the automotive package is a Certificate 3. Now, for a student to be able to do a Cert 4, which is a Certificate 4, they need to have completed a Certificate 3. So that's a prerequisite. So you complete 1 year in Certificate 3, follow it up with a Certificate 4, which is 6 months, and that leads to a diploma course. So obviously, the higher study you have, the better it is for you in terms of your employment opportunities, because you can go to your potential employers and say, look, I don't just have a Certificate 3, a basic entry requirement. I've actually got a diploma, formal qualification. That will hopefully help you in your future.
So does that answer your question, Suraj? Yes, all good.
Right.
One of your other questions was how much is it in PTE? So 5.5 in IELTS is equivalent to about between 43 to 50 in your PTE test. All
That's
right?
correct.
Okay, one more question. Let me just scroll above. Do you have a pathway to university for Apeiro? Short answer is no.
Great question. The short answer is no, but it is something is currently in the process. To name a few universities we are in contact with as we speak, Murdoch University and Edith Cowan University in Western Australia.
Right.
So we are currently in talks with them.
Okay, what would be...
I just had a thought, guys.
Sorry, Joseph?
Karthik and just wanted to understand something. Is there any plan for Apeiro to do any courses in the countries that you're seeking these specialist automotive members from? Why I'm asking this question is that in these countries that you are focusing on, the courses are basically a lot less expensive if you compare the exchange rates. So so even like for me, I did an MBA program in Malaysia for less than 22,000 ringgit, right? And it was with the University of Wales in London, with the London School of Commerce. So what I'm trying to understand is that there's a lot of this kind of programs which are being held in Malaysia, and Malaysia is a sort of also a hub in this region for these training programs from abroad here. Yeah. So since end of the day, cost is always a consideration. Are there any plans that Apeiro has for this time?
Potentially, it is something that we can definitely look at. However, with that being said, given the circumstance right now, with the pandemic and everything that's happening, I think our initial goal is to have a well-established RTO across capital cities in Australia, following which we can definitely look at expansion overseas as well. And I do agree when you say the cost side of things, that education overseas as compared to Australia is cheaper. But what I would like to point out is it's an experience that students get when they come to Australia. It's not just paying for the course and getting a formal qualification. It's integrating into a absolute different way of living, lifestyle, and workforce.
Yes.
Which to me, in particular, was very, very helpful. And I think that's why I chose to move to Australia as well, because I came here as an international student, and my thought process was very similar to yours as well. Why should I be coming to Australia when I can get a similar qualification for potentially way cheaper the price?
Yeah.
But the truth is, the exposure that you get here and the opportunities that this leads to is going to be phenomenal. And I can say that with complete faith and trust, because I take a good hard look in the mirror.
Yeah. Well, Kartik, if you can just rewind a little bit to the slide where you've actually shared with us on the remuneration package. So I guess, you know, learning, you know, going to school and then eventually living in some of these countries in Malaysia, Philippines, and Indonesia, you're also confined to the potential earnings of that ceiling, that amount. So whereas Australia is a huge difference in terms of your compensation. So the reason why some of the kids who've decided to come here to Australia to study is because they have the opportunity to work after they've completed their program. So there's a 2.5 year post-study work visa, or graduate work visa, we call it, for the students, international students, to consider. And that's where they gain experience, a whole new scheme of, you know, things that Kartik, you've just mentioned, is a whole new experience. They be more independent. They learn a different culture. They learn to work with different people from different background, and definitely at a much better remuneration package than they could ever have imagined from their home country. So that's what I wanted to share here.
Absolutely. And just to add to this, Sonia, if you don't mind, I don't think I've mentioned this, but initially when I started the presentation, I was chatting about the quality of education we'd like to provide at Apeiro. And the way we reflect it is through our resources, which in first sense goes that our trainers. Now, our trainers are highly qualified. They have years and years of industry experience in various companies. Just to name a few, would be one of our Cert 3 trainers in the Perth campus currently has worked for the likes of Rolls-Royce, Aston Martin, Mercedes-Benz. And when I spoke with him saying, hey, like, what made you change your mind to get yourself into training? He said, I really enjoyed working as a mechanic, but I saw the quality of education provided in Australia, which is at top notch, but I wanted to actually make a difference in students' lives by imparting the practical knowledge that I've learned into theoretical understanding and teaching, so that the future students can showcase that, you know, in their walks of life and chosen careers. We also recently have a new trainer that started with us, and he has studied these courses in Australia. And after finishing his study, he managed to find employment with Kia. And he's worked there for a few years as a mechanic. So just goes to show that the employment opportunities post-study in Australia is quite immense, because you get to work with such multinationals. And of course, as we discussed earlier, at a really good remuneration package as well.
A quick question on the education itself, Kartik. When it comes to these kind of practical education, and you know, not everyone is at the same intellectual level to understand things as these courses are being imparted to the students. Question is, if there is a guy or other guys that are a bit slow to pick things up, I mean, they need to be like they need to be taught in detail, process 1, process 2, process 3, process 4. Whereas maybe some other guys can pick it up pretty quick. So is there any method that your
Sure.
center uses to help students who are just mediocre, who just have
absolutely
knowledge? Yeah.
Right. I understand your question. And let's say if a student is per se struggling to grasp a concept and or needs a bit more attention, the trainers will provide them so. The reason being, when it comes to assessment, the way the assessments marked here are satisfactory or unsatisfactory. So for the students to be able to pass, has to be satisfactory. How is that going to happen? Is when the student has the right theoretical and practical knowledge. So the trainers will definitely go back to the student and assist them all along. My only advice to students would be, is should there be questions or concerns, please don't take them home. Please discuss them with the trainers, because once they know, that's when they can be addressed. And that's how the student can make the most out of their program with us. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
No problems. Sonia, sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, you were on mute.
I'm just a bit worried about time. So there are a few more questions. There was a question on what's the living expenses like? If I can point you to our website, www.blueeducation.com.au/FAQs. It details on what are my options with respect to accommodation, how much should I allocate for my weekly expenses, how can I improve my budget. So information on budgeting and costs are all provided there. Last question, oh sorry, 2 more questions, that's all we can take.
Sure.
If I only have
Please.
SPM, that's equivalent to your 11th certificate, can I be eligible for the Diploma of Business? Kartik?
Great question. Now, generally speaking, our requirement for students to enroll into the courses is Year 12. However, we do understand that some countries have a different level of education. So if a student has completed Year 11, and perhaps after that duration, they have worked in any industry or have had some sort of education overseas, we can consider it. So the short answer is, we are more than happy to take these applications case by case, get them assessed. Perhaps we may have to do a Skype or a phone interview with the student to deem that their enrollment with us is going to be satisfactory and accept the student. But again, as I did mention, we'll have to take it case by case.
All right.
Hope that helps.
Yes, definitely. All right. Was there one more question?
Last question.
Okay, sorry. This is the website. If you can see my screen, so just scroll to living and you can have all the information that I've just spoken about. Now, last question. When the students are assessed, are they assessed based on how they perform the workshops plus how they perform on their written assessments? If we can have a little bit more clarification on how students are assessed.
On the assessment? Sure. As I was saying earlier, answering Joseph's question, the way our assessments are marked is usually they're satisfactory or non-satisfactory. This goes for both practical assessments. Each student has to practically perform a task and deem satisfactory or non-satisfactory. And the same goes for theory questions or theory assessments as well. Now, a number of assessment generally forms a part of a unit. So students have to ensure that each of their assessment is satisfactory for them to be deemed as competent for the whole unit.
All right.
Hope that helps.
Sure. Good. Happy? All right. No objection.
Beauty.
So we're right about on time. So it's
Sure.
12. Look, Kartik's contactable. Ourselves, our team, so we're all made available to you, and we're going to put this live on our platforms through Blue Education and Blue International Facebook. So we'll be hosting the watch parties. Share with your friends. All right. Other than that, thank you very much, Kartik, for your time today. Thank you everyone for participating. If you still have questions, you wish to forward to Kartik, just drop us an email at info@blueeducation.com.au and we'll be happy to connect you with Kartik of Apeiro. All right.
Sounds brilliant. Well, thank you so much for having me, Sonia. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to all our viewers that have joined in, and I hope the session was insightful. As Sonia did mention, should there be any questions, concerns, or if you wish to know more about studying in Australia or Perth, Victoria, I mean, throughout the country and at Apeiro, I think the best people to talk to would be Sonia and her team at Blue Education. They'll be able to guide you through it. And should there be technical questions, please let Sonia know, and she'll be able to direct them towards myself and my team, and we'll be at your service. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a
No
lovely
problems.
Thank you, Sonia.
I think there's one last question that came through, Sonia.
Oh, how fast can I find a job after graduating? Would you want to?
Well, tell you what, this is a great question. And I get this asked a lot, like almost every other day, not going to lie. My answer to that is, if I were you as a student, I would start looking for a job whilst I'm studying. So to put things into perspective, our current Certificate 3 students actually are working in the industry themselves at apprentices, you know, as beginners. So by the time when students graduate, they have substantial experience to be able to move on. However, to answer your question, how fast can you find? Comes down to, well, you have the qualification, you have the skill and the network. In Australia, I think the biggest thing for students to be able to find jobs is their network.
That's right. And I trust Apeiro Institute will stand behind your students, right?
Most definitely. That's what we are trying to do. So what we're doing is partnering with local businesses and giving students insights of where there's jobs available. You know, what do the students have to do to be able to get the job? We can't promise them jobs, but we're going to lead them in that right direction and formulate a fruitful pathway for them.
Yes, that's very important. All right.
Hope that helped.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.